A prophecy hurtling toward fulfillment, the Synod, the warning, and an important note on Garabandal's regarding today's news, found on dsdoconnor.com. Everywhere we look, the signs of the imminence of the great events are multiplying. Many will today be hearing of the news of the Bishop of Santander, the Diocese of the Garabandal apparitions, Manuel Sanchez Monge, stating, regarding the apparitions, my position, like that of my predecessors, is that Rome's assessment remains valid. There are no signs of supernaturality. This is not a condemnation of Garabandal. The Church has three basic responses to alleged apparitions. Constant de supernaturalitat. It is supernatural. Constant de non-supernaturalitat. It is not supernatural. Non constant de supernaturalitat. It is not determined to be supernatural. The single biggest misunderstanding among Catholics regarding the Church's rulings on apparitions is that many seem to think that a non-constant, the number 3, is a condemnation. But that notion is absolutely false. Only a constant de non, number 2, is a condemnation. Non-constants merely indicate that the bishop and or the commissioned report submitted to him in his own undertaken discernment and or investigative efforts, which are known to vary wildly in their diligence from one bishop to the next, was not able to find enough objective evidence to give him sufficient moral certitude for a public declaration that the phenomenon in question is indeed heaven sent. He therefore, with a non-constant degree, indicates that he cannot determine that it is supernatural in origin. That is all. In fact, I wager that a non-constant decision, in some cases at least, favors the likelihood of the authentically supernatural nature of the apparition in question. For what such a decision shows us that the Church indeed undertook an investigation, yet still found no grounds for condemning the apparition. This despite the fact that we live amid an epidemic of rationalism, skepticism, and atheism, both in the world and in the Church, and many churchmen wouldn't know the supernatural if it smacked them in the face. Moreover, as each bishop knows, apparitions occurring within his diocese would cause him many headaches. Therefore, there is a great temptation among the episcopacy to find any reason to condemn any alleged apparition. A non-constant shows us that despite strenuous attempts to seek out such an excuse, none could be found. As noted by the prolific theologian Father René Laurentin, likely the 20th century's greatest expert on Marian apparitions and named by Pope Benedict XVI as a prelate of His Holiness in 2009. In today's climate, not even the apparitions at Lourdes would be approved by the Church. Therefore, while some will doubtless insist on pretending to be scandalized by my assertions here, I am in good company in this assessment of the present situation. Do not misunderstand. We must indeed obey legitimate authority in the Church, even if and when this authority's decrees are ill-advised. If Garabandal or any other apparitions I've promoted were to be given a constant de non in a formal and public decree, then I would immediately cease promoting it. But that, of course, is not what we are dealing with here. Recall that bishops are extremely adept at making it abundantly clear, super abundantly clear rather, when exactly it is that they are outright condemning an alleged apparition. See, for example, the decree on Bayside of Veronica Lucan. There is never any cause for a Catholic to play the more obedient than thou game here by pretending that condemnations of apparitions exist even when there is no clear, constant de non supernaturalitate decree. Hasn't the current pontificate taught us just how foolish that game is, anyhow? Some prophecies have even indicated that Garabandal's messages would have to be essentially placed in the tomb before the fulfillment of the events foretold therein, which is why this announcement from the bishop strikes me as yet another indication of the imminence of the events spoken of at Garabandal, above all the warning. The warning. To my new followers and all those new to this concept, the warning or the illumination of conscience is an imminent worldwide event foretold by many prophecies, and of such magnitude that nothing like it has ever been seen in history. It will be a mini judgment day, wherein each soul on the planet will, at the same moment, be miraculously shown the state of his soul as it stands before God himself. It is most likely what is referred to by the sixth seal of Revelation in the sixth book of the Apocalypse, wherein we are told of what at first appears to be the end of the world, Judgment Day, with even the stars in the sky falling to the earth, the sky divided like a torn scroll, and all men on earth crying out for the very mountains to fall upon them to hide them from the wrath of the Lamb. Yes, this appears to be Judgment Day itself, but it is not. Quite the opposite. It is only the first major event of the apocalypse. Most of the events of the apocalypse, the reign of the Antichrist, and most importantly, the reign of the divine will, the era of peace before the end of time, will follow. For most, the warning will be the most painful event in their lives. The heinousness of their sins will become manifest. Some may even die of shock. The purpose of this event, however, is not to punish, much less kill, but rather to serve as the greatest act of divine mercy in history. It will be given to overwhelm everyone on earth with divine grace, such that they are given an absolutely undeniable chance to choose the right side and save their souls before the great persecution of the Antichrist commences thereafter. There will be torrents of souls coming back to God's grace after this event, and we must help this by right now evangelizing as never before in history leading up to the warning, and especially in the few weeks immediately after it. But sadly, most will likely reject even that grace, just as they are already rejecting the many graces God is showering us with, and become even more evil. The line in the sand will have been drawn, and the sides will be chosen. There will be surprises. The Synod. We can conclude that this event is likely extremely imminent due to the number of signs. I discussed many of them earlier this year, as I speculated that it might be possible that the warning could even transpire in 2022. While that is still possible, it is now seeming like it may be a bit longer until the warning happens. As is often the case with prophecy, the gist of the outlined events does indeed transpire, but things sometimes take a bit longer to brew than it initially appeared they would need. I hasten to add, however, that everything could change quite literally overnight, particularly if the first nuke flies or the Pope suddenly goes to Moscow. We shouldn't yet rule out the possibility of the warning being this year. Along with the situation regarding Russia, World War III, and the use of nuclear weapons, the current Synod of synodality is among the clearest signs of the imminence of the warning, as I've posted before. If there was ever an important synod, important in a very bad way, that would be the present Synod of Synodality. I have heard some lengthier thoughts on this matter, which I feel are important to share, but they are coming soon. I had written most of them months ago, but wasn't sure if I would publish them. Seeing what the cardinals have said below, however, this has convinced me to publish them. For now, I simply want to replay what they, some of the greatest shepherds in the Church, are warning regarding what is happening in this synod. Great details isn't needed here, as most of my readers will have likely already seen this, but the perfect emeritus for the Congregation of the Doctrine of Faith, Cardinal Gerhard Müller, just gave about the most doctrinally apocalyptic warning one could imagine about this synod. The Cardinal said, "This has nothing to do with Jesus Christ, with the triune God, and they think doctrine is only a program of political party who can change it according to their voters. If they will succeed, that will be the end of the Catholic Church." These are precisely the types of warnings that I and others have been giving for many years about the apocalyptic and long prophesied great apostasy. We have been repeatedly mocked and denounced for doing so. Perhaps that mockery will decrease now that these same warnings are being boldly given by the single most qualified person the face of the planet. Now, obviously, Müller knows the Catholic Church will not end. He knows this is contrary to Christ's promise in the Gospel. His point is simply that the logical conclusion of the present synod, as it is being undertaken, is the total destruction of the faith. Two facts, then, must be considered. Cardinal Müller is clearly correct. The synod's trajectory is the destruction of the Catholic Church, and I will explain this more thoroughly in a future post. Number 2, the Catholic Church will not be destroyed. We are then left to ponder, what will stop the madness? There is no indication that anyone running the synod will stop the madness. They are, on the contrary, unanimously cheering it on. But no one else has the power to stop the madness. Therefore, God will stop the madness, and I propose that He will do so through the warning. In other fronts as well, everything continues as the prophecies have indicated they would, even if the culmination of these processes is taking slightly longer than it would have initially seemed. The total economic collapse continues gaining momentum. Most mainstream economists are admitting that severe recession is either at hand or about to begin. More honest economists are acknowledging that severe depression is at hand. Who could be surprised by this? We created trillions of dollars out of thin air, thus guaranteeing the destruction of the global reserve currency, the US dollar, and now the feds are pretending they can sneak their way out of the logical result of that by continually raising interest rates. By printing trillions of dollars, they watered down the soup. Inflation results once the watered down soup has been consumed and people realize their hunger remains. Now they are simply restricting access to new soup in hopes of fooling people into thinking that watered down soup is valuable. The analogy may be imperfect, but the result cannot be avoided: global economic collapse. This too is part of their plan for the Great Reset. The warning signs of the imminent global famine continue to surge. International relations, particularly regarding Russia and Ukraine, continue their steady march towards the increasing likelihood of World War III and/or nuclear war breaking out. All of the most competent commentators on these matters are admitting that each day of this year has brought us closer to the previously unthinkable possibility of nuclear war. The infrastructure of the Antichrist is nearing completion, and there is every warning sign that the way for the mark of the beast is being prepared, most alarmingly now through central bank digital currencies. Society continues growing more insane by the day through wokeness, particularly the continuing domination of the LGBT agenda. It is not even possible to imagine a more complete rejection of the divine and natural law than this movement entails, nor is it possible for divine justice to continue to allow this situation to persist once it reaches a doubtless imminent critical mass. The next tyranny, post-COVID tyranny that is, a global zero-carbon initiative, is promising to completely destroy economic life and much of social life. Humanity is intrinsically tied to carbon emissions. That is how God set things up. We need them, and the notion that we need to be rid of them is nothing but a backdoor for globalist dictatorship. The prophetic consensus continues warning of the extreme imminence of the great events. It would, therefore, be very wise to prepare to see our Lord.